it's developing the relationship between the two. And this game is at its very, very best when it's doing those things. Hey guys, so we're going to be talking about The Last of Us Part 2. I brought along one of my mates here. Obviously, if you haven't looked at the header or the title of the video or anything like this is going to have a ton of spoilers. We're talking about all different parts of the game. Nothing's off limits, so you've had a spoiler warning. If you haven't played the game, I would recommend clicking away, go and play the game, come back to this one. But otherwise, here we go. I've got my mate with me here, Josh, and I think probably to call you a fan might be a little bit of an understatement.
Yes, Michael, I love it. I've played the first one like 8 times through, and I want to go again for the second one already. And if any of your fans are off to play it before they watch this, we'll see you in about 50 game hours.
If you're the sort of person that decides to look in every single nook and cranny, that's not far off. That's not far off at all. Yeah, okay. So I guess we could probably just start off super simply by, I think it's really important after like finishing the game and like playing through it and processing it a little bit and then looking at some of the other stuff that people have been putting up online about it, is actually, before we even talk about the game itself, we should probably talk about how you feel about Joel at the end of the first game, because obviously at the end of the first game, it's kind of left a little bit up to interpretation. And then after that, the second game has a very strong opinion on what you were supposed to take from the end of that first game. And I think what you probably took into it from the first game is going to color your opinion of the second game a little bit going into it, which may, you might, like for me, for example, like I butt heads a little bit with what the second game presented as like what I was supposed to think of Joel as. So
Your opinion's wrong, Boomer. No.
We're on the internet, we're on YouTube doing a podcasty kind of thing. Of course, my opinion is wrong because it's not yours. But yeah, so how did you feel about Joel at the end of the first game?
Yeah. Well, I think they've obviously presented. In my opinion, I thought they presented him by the end of it as a bit of a villain to humanity, but savior to, I guess, one particular person. So I think I realized it when David's talking to Ellie at how his soldiers were telling him about a girl and a man running around literally killing everyone and freaking them all out. And I think I realized then that, okay, there is more about what Joel's willing to do for his own selfish endeavors, if you think about it. And obviously that's all born out of the trauma of losing Sarah at the very beginning. So obviously there's a lot of reasons, and you feel for him because of that. But it doesn't change the fact that by the end of this first game, he's literally decided to potentially end the human race because he can't let someone go. So I felt pretty strongly that he was a villain in context of the greater good, which is, I guess, where heroes and villains are born out of. It's what you do for the greater good.
Yeah, so like you like, do you feel like completely unjustified, or just that like the bad outweighs the good in this sense?
Oh, I can see why he decided to do that, but at the same time, it took him shooting up an entire hospital full of firefighters to get there as well. And if you're not showing any remorse through 4 levels of shooting people just to get one person out, and then obviously the big thing is shooting her guardian in the face. That I think that's looked over a little bit these days when we talk about Joel, is people forget that he shot Marlene because she'd come after him, and which is probably very fair. And let's not forget that she was the one entrusted with Ellie, and I know that she had to give a way to be smuggled out, but yeah, there's a lot more, I guess, to it than just lying to her at the end of the game. There's shooting Marlene and taking her out of the picture, basically ruining the Fireflies on his own, just for his own selfish gain. But again, the game is very good because it manipulates you into realizing why he did that, and it does a great job of you feeling like you're part of that little family.
Yeah.
And that's why I think people struggle with it.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's sort of where I was talking about, like, it's interesting because, like, I didn't get a lot of that from the first game, which seems to be the minority opinion, but I've definitely bumped into some people that also, like, like when you look at that decision at the end of the first game, like the whole first game is a redemption story for Joel. Like the whole thing is he starts off with this really traumatic event, and then he's a scarred human being at the start of the game, and he's cold towards Ellie, and he's brutal in his approach to situations, and you obviously explore some of that as you go through the game, as you like talk to Tommy, talk to what's the dude with the cars, um,
Scooter. No,
Bill.
just kidding.
Scooter. No, it is not Scooter. It was Bill in his wired up town. Like you get this like, and even just conversations about like when you get ambushed by the hunters, conversations about how Joel used to do all this really bad shit, and he used to run with Tommy, and they used to do bad shit, and throughout the game, it's kind of like this like redemption story about how he's kind of warming up to being a father again, and then takes Ellie on very much as his daughter at the end of the game, and so he like does these actions out of like pure fatherly love that he's sort of developed for Ellie, as opposed to out of this kind of selfish notion, I guess you would say, is that like it's like the way that I kind of took it was that it's purely I guess it's not purely unselfish. That would definitely not be a way to put it. But like the way that I sort of took it was that it's this like fatherly instinct is overcoming his kind of like need for um the greater good, the morality of the situation, that kind of thing. And it's interesting again with the Marlene thing, because you've mentioned that to me a couple of times, but I've sort of very much brushed over that, like brushed over it, kind of just like, well, like it's tying up a loose end. So Marlene was obviously the head of the Fireflies, and you've just ruined everything that they were doing. And so now Joel needs to tie that loose end up in order to prevent the what's essentially the start of the second game. But yeah,
But in doing that, he essentially murders his well, he essentially murders Ellie's guardian and already other figure to become the father figure. So there's more
yes.
layers than just removing her out of
Yeah,
the
no,
Firefly.
100%, 100%, and we'll get into that in a second. So the only other thing that I want to discuss before we actually start talking about Last of Us Part 2, really quickly, is how do you feel about Naughty Dog and their relationship with ludonarrative dissonance? Now, um, ludonarrative dissonance obviously is that idea that when you're doing something in the gameplay, it doesn't fit up with the either motivations of the person watching it or the motivations in particular of the character within the narrative. So the perfect example of that, Nathan Drake in Uncharted, he's a very altruistic character. He spends a lot of the story like trying not to do harm. In Uncharted 2, there's a part where he like picks up this reporter who is a little bit hurt and carries him through the streets of the town, and that's like completely at odds with the rest of the gameplay where he's just mercilessly murdering people left, right, and center. And I think that's a classic one. And I guess do you want to talk to that, because like again I think that like Naughty Dog has a terrible problem with ludonarrative dissonance that they fixed up in this game a little bit, but yeah, it's a problem.
Well, yeah, I guess that is just the trope the problem in some ways with Uncharted, because he's a psychotic monster. If you think about it from a realistic point of view, he goes from I need to find treasure. The only like occasion when I think it's probably okay for him to be killing anything is those Nazi zombie things. That's probably in the first game. It's probably the only
Yes.
time you can justify him murdering something because they are scary.
I mean, like
But
they're already dead. Does that count? Can you be murdered
I don't
twice?
know. But those guardian things, you're in their house, like you shouldn't be hurting them. But anyway, um, yeah. Well, I think I probably feel a bit different. The more I thought about it, the more I feel like The Last of Us 2 didn't have that problem at
Yeah,
all,
right.
in my
Okay.
opinion. And
So
I think
I mean,
that's
like
where that's,
I guess, like yeah, like how
Naughty
much?
Dog do have a problem with it traditionally.
I
I
guess
mean, if sorry,
I was just gonna say, I
yeah.
guess how much does it like affect your like lens of the experience, kind of thing? Like, because we could probably
Well,
sit here and
if I'm
talk about
looking at The
ludonarrative
Last of
dissonance
Us,
all
then it
day.
actually it improves my lens on both The Last of Us 1 and 2 if we're looking at it from that lens. Obviously, Uncharted's out the window and you hate everything, but um, no, Last of Us 1 and 2, it probably benefits from that lens, I reckon.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I sort of feel a little bit like that myself. Like they've Naughty Dog has historically had quite a problem with ludonarrative dissonance. Significant, like huge problem. Nathan Drake, like you said, is a psychopathic killer monster. He probably kills more than any of the villains in any of his games. Just because they work for a mercenary company and they're like chasing a paycheck or whatever, and then he has this altruistic side in the cutscenes, which just doesn't really fit. But I think that they've gone a long way to fix up some of that stuff in this game, to make some of the character motivations a little bit more conducive with the actions that you're going to do during gameplay. But I still think there is a massive gap between where you would like where you would find something reasonable and what they've got. They've definitely gone a lot more. And just to, I guess, talk about this, I've been thinking about it a little bit, and like I was trying to say like Uncharted has a massive problem with ludonarrative dissonance, but The Last of Us 1, I can't think of a time outside of the very end of the game where there is this dissonance, because I'm trying to think like Joel kills a ton of hunters, but he was being like chased by those hunters in Boston. Um, like at the very start, he kills a bunch of people that are part of that. Like, I guess he probably doesn't need to murder like 14 people to try and get his guns back right at the start of The Last of Us. He could probably just sneak through that without murdering nine. Like, I think is there about 8 in that shipping sort of dock area at the start of the game?
There's a ton, but then again, it's kill or be killed in that situation as well.
Right, so that's kind of the lens.
They know that he's coming for the guns, and they know that he's coming for the they know in a way he's representing the Fireflies and their enemies at that stage in some ways with the gun shipment and stuff. So
yeah, well, he's not representing the Fireflies at that point. He doesn't get.
Well, they would. What I'm saying is they would see him as, oh no, this Firefly is coming.
Oh right, yes, yeah, 100%.
So
okay. Yes, but anyway, like less of an issue in the first one, kind of thing. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So, like, I guess, like, that's kind of the two things that I think we kind of need to discuss coming into this, because particularly the stuff with Joel really reflects very heavily on the start of the story. So let's just like, I guess, go through and just get a general idea about what you thought of the game. Like, what did you like? What didn't you like? Like, how'd you find the story? If you had to put a number on it, what would you put a number on it with? All that sort of stuff.
Oh, we both know what I'm gonna say. I would give it a 10. I think.
I would, 10.
Just
wow.
Because
no problems.
I love
Very
it.
Very few problems.
I saw. Well, I think I kind of see what they were trying to achieve with it, and things felt a little bit rushed. But the more I thought about it, like the scars, for example, they still left a ton of mystery around them, and I like that. And I recall correctly.
I had problems with that. We'll get to
I know you had problems with that, but I think if I recall, the only figurehead you really see is their spiritual leader. Really, you don't really ever get to dive into that hierarchy and how they've become this murderous mob that Lev and Yara talk about. So I think that's awesome. That opens up another Lost Legacy style DLC in the future, maybe, hopefully, please, Naughty Dog. But I love the story. I think at times the combat felt a little bit overwhelming. I think you get into situations, whether or not that was intentional, to try and make you feel like you're being swarmed. At times when I felt like the situation that I was in was frustrating more than tricky, and some of the rushes that you'd have from enemies were a bit tough to deal with, and that's probably one of the negatives I had on it. But at the same time, wasn't a big deal for me. I love smashing the glass through everything. I broke so many cars and windows, and I was telling you the other day, towards the end there, we had the open door and the 2 glass panes, and I just went through both of those and then exited.
It's so satisfying. They've done such a good job with the glass.
And okay, but my madness was justified at one point because I was smashing away in a shop, like literally all in a China shop thing, and I found a trading card in one of the bottom cabinets, and you couldn't see it unless you smashed it. So
yeah, there's actually there's actually quite a few things. Like there's a section at the bottom of the hospital, and there's like like a series of glass cabinets makes sense. Hospital, and if you go through and smash them, I think like at least in my run through, I got about 30 of the drug pill things that give you the upgrades.
Yes.
You wouldn't have got them. Like they weren't doing the shiny thing, at least in the
Yeah.
lighting. It
Yeah.
was difficult to see, and so you go through and you smash each of the bits of glasses and you pick up all the stuff. And there's several times I found trading cards and things like that. And yeah, the glass is an awesome addition. And like we have had a bit of a conversation offline about this, but about like the gameplay situations that it comes up with. So like things like you could just run past a store and not think about it, but if you like stop and slow down and take a look, you can see that that's like there's space in there that you can get into. It's not boarded up, and you can find a brick, or if you've got obviously you've got a gun most of the situations, so you can run up and smash the window with the gun, and then that's like an extra little area that you've got to be kind of keeping an eye out for. That the glass, where in the previous game it would have to be like a door that you walk through, and it's a very obvious open door, or it would have to be a window or something like that, where like it's a very
Those classic yellow painted ledges.
yeah. One of the Naughty Dog yellow. Yeah, someone's gone through and painted yellow on all the ledges. Yeah, exactly. Like whereas in this one, that you can hide that stuff a little bit more behind glass or behind like things like cabinets and stuff like that. Yeah, the glass was a really cool addition.
My
Yeah.
favorite example of that was in Chinatown. I think there's a section where you got to get a note on top of the double-story building, but to get there, you have to go into a couple of shops on the bottom, then you climb a staircase, you search that area, you smash open a door, you put a plank down, you run across. Like there's just so much to do to get to
Yeah.
one note. Like I know that it probably doesn't feel that satisfying, but I was enjoying the story,
No,
so I
I
enjoyed reading those notes. But
I really enjoyed that. I think I know the section that you're talking about, and I did all of that stuff, and then I was like, where the fuck is the safe? and it's
oh,
and it's like it's behind the glass. It's behind the. I'd looked in everything that looked like it was open, and then I hadn't looked in the one that had all the glass panels. And so then I'm like, oh, well, it must be behind something. And then you take a bit of a closer look, and yeah, this shop you can get into. It's just that the door is boarded up, but the glass windows are all still just glass. Fucking brick.
I didn't. Yeah, so that was the best edition. But yeah, so that was my thoughts on the game. I love the story. I felt
Loved
like
it.
sometimes
Glass.
loved it, and I felt like sometimes you felt a bit overwhelmed. And I don't know if that was intentional, but sometimes more frustrating.
Yeah.
I got really upset at trying to get through the last when you're going through the Rattler camp. I ended up just doing that thing where I let the clickers go at the first portion
Oh,
and
that's such a good
just
bit
fucking
though.
sprinted through the level. I was like, I'm done with this shit. I'm running. Give me the story. Fuck the shooting.
Oh yeah, so you were
Um,
you were pretty fed up by the end of it.
wasn't fed up, but I just didn't like that area because I was running out of bullets and the game had swarmed me back and I had nothing. I was finding like 2 shells, killing people, getting 1, and I was
But
just
they
running
give
out of
you a
things. So I was
silenced
like,
machine gun.
yes, but I wasted it because I'm terrible. So
Yeah, I
I
think it
wasted everything.
takes about 4 bullets, I think, to kill someone,
Yes.
even if you get close to the head, or maybe even in the head. I'm not sure. Headshots, I think, might be a straight up kill.
There were a few insta kill situations, but then you'd stealth and then someone see you from a fucking balcony or the
Yeah,
clickers would go off and then you just get in trouble. So by that point I was a bit like, I just need to sprint. I was getting frustrated. I was tired. I just wanted to finish the game. So I
yeah,
sprinted through. But probably the only level that I didn't necessarily enjoy that I imagine I'll really enjoy going back through. So what
yeah.
about you, Michael?
so, I'm very much in the mixed feelings camp. Like I'm still kind of processing, I guess, how I exactly want to describe to people the Last of Us kind of thing, and I'm still like writing out my review, and my review's been pretty difficult because I'm like, there's so much good stuff, and then there's just stuff that I just don't like, and and it's like one of my big problems is the the Lev Yara stuff. But there's a couple of different ways that you can kind of like, if you want to be like conceptually, there's a couple of if you like, I've got a problem with it and I need to work out why, like what is the problem, what is wrong with this, and why is it that I don't like it. And there's a couple of different sort of angles that you could come at and say like, well, this is the problem, and if they had done this, it would fix it. But normally there's only sort of like 1 or 2 of those, whereas like I can sort of think of a few. So we'll get to that when we talk about structure in a second. But overall, I really loved it. I loved the tone. I've heard some people really didn't like the tone. I loved the tone. I think that like I love how aggressive and violent and terrifying the entire game is. That I'm so used, like we're so used to this kind of like Hollywood dark. I guess if you read a lot of like comics or a lot of like particular types of books or something that like less traditional, less mass market media, maybe you'll get exposed to this really grim, dark content more often. But like, I love that this is a mass media piece and it is unabashedly like you kill people in a very gruesome way. The tone is really dark. That whole business that like Neil Druckmann was like, you're not supposed to have fun. I still had plenty of fun. Sorry, Neil, but
You're a
like
monster.
I am obviously just a garbage person. Stop having fun. You're supposed to feel dark. But yeah,
Oh,
like I had a ton of fun. But like I love the tone. I really like what they did with the story, like just in general. I really like the direction that they took with it, the business with Joel at the start, obviously like the revenge plot. Um, the the I like the wolves and I like the Seraphites conceptually. The execution, again, we'll talk about it in a second. But the execution was just not good, man. And like so many people are saying, oh, it's long, it's too long. The boss of Sony comes out and is like, oh, 20-hour games. You need to make 15-hour games because that's where the market's heading. And I don't think that's the solution at all, like making 15-hour games. And a lot of people are getting behind that idea of making 15-hour games. I think it's just that, like, again, I think it's an execution problem with this game more so than it's a problem with 20-hour games. But to that point, I guess, making a really long Naughty Dog game would take 19 years and we'd all be just like frothing and would be like, you'd be in high school playing the first one and then you'd retire and you could buy the second one. But yeah, I think the execution was a bit like crap, but I love what they were doing with the story. Some of the beats are really really good. The gameplay hasn't gotten immensely different, but I think they've done a really good pass on like expanding out the systems that they had in the first game to make it a little bit more expansive, to give you a few more options. Love the addition of prone. Prone is awesome. Like, it's a great little tool. I love the fact that when you have prone, or like when you go prone, that the enemies can still see you in the grass. Like if you're moving, it's a better chance of them seeing you. And if they just walk up to you, they see you. I love that. That's great. Like there's so many obviously situations where you're standing like 3 inches from someone, and it's just like, where's the guy? I think he went over here or whatever. Not in this game. Like if they get within about 5 feet of you, they're like, there's the fucker right there. So like, yeah, it's like, I love that. Like so much of what they did, I think was really good. Like, but my two big problems are, three. We'll say three. Okay. There's a couple of sections of gameplay that don't need to be in there. There's,
uh,
there's, actually probably not don't need to be in there. I think I would tweak them. Let's say that I'd tweak them because they're a little bit long for what they are. If you're doing them by yourself, as in which there's a couple of big long sections where you're just playing as Ellie and you're just playing as Abby. We're gonna get to that. I'm gonna talk to you about that. The second one was, I think there's just some execution problems with the story, and then the third one I've completely forgotten. But I think I was gonna say that like they didn't quite lean on the things that I found really really strong about The Last of Us, which is things like spending time with other characters, spending a lot of time with other characters to let you like slowly build up those relationships or slowly get to know them, that kind of stuff. And then yeah, that's basically my thoughts on it. So like,
I mean,
I would probably give it like
how-
an 8 out of 10. I was like, it's still a fantastic game. It's still top notch. It's still like, oh, there's award-winning tech. There's so much good stuff. It's fun to play. It's fun to play. It's enjoyable to play. But there's just like what I'm kind of like aiming at with my review, which I'm thinking might be out by the time I release this, but we'll see. One might be before the other. Is I'm kind of going with this line that like if everything points to the story and everything supports it and the story isn't good, how do you rate the game? And I didn't find the story very good. Yeah, so I guess let's talk about the story. Let's just move on and talk about the story. If you haven't got anything else that you wanted to say, just
well, I
generally.
was just going to say, I also love the prone, and I like that they learn from what they've done. Like the Lost Legacy had the silences and had the long grass and the sort of hiding away, and it
It
didn't
did
like in that
too.
particular
It did
game, it
too.
wasn't fully developed by that point. But
Yeah,
when you
that
got
was like
here, I mean,
standard Sony stealth where it's like
yeah,
in
yeah,
grass is hidden.
and triangle and they're dead now.
Throw rock.
But yeah, I didn't find it in that game particularly well executed because it didn't feel finished in a way. And now to get to this game, I can see like, holy fuck, they were
It
going
felt
towards something amazing.
yeah, it felt very gamey in
Um,
comparison to what you sort of expect from a Naughty Dog game. I found.
yeah, and I'm glad that they continued on with that legacy and brought it across to The Last of Us. Because there's one section where you meet the Seraphites, and I'm working my way down as Ellie to the hospital, and there's that, I think they use it in the trailer, but that car park that you're working through when you're trying to kill them.
Which is different
And
in the game.
and there was this one little, I can't describe it. I might even get it for you and give it for you for screen grab. But there was a bush that was protruding out of one of the corners, and I proned right next to it, and they really struggled to see me until they got close to me, which is obviously good. But it's like in any other game, because Ellie was up on another level. Like in any other game, it probably would have not recognized you as proning, but this one just had a lot of detail to it. Like if the line of sight was hidden, they just could not see you. But sometimes there's a problem with that line of sight where even if you're below it, or you think you're below an item that they can't look through, they look straight through it because it's a bug or whatever. So I was really happy with that proning section as well. And it made stealthing way more enjoyable for me. I hate stealthing usually. Like usually I'll just be like, I hate this now. Kill two people. um,
Yeah, no,
it's
I know
coming
this
at you,
feels.
Ludonaro, fuck you. Like,
Yeah.
but
Take
in
this
this one, I
distance.
loved stealthing, and I don't ever say that. I don't ever say that I enjoy stealthing because I traditionally don't. We've played Borderlands together quite a lot. You know that I don't. I just Leroy Jenkins straight into
Yep.
enemies. I don't care.
100.
Um,
Hungies.
yeah. So story.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, cool. So, like, okay. So, do you want to go first or do you want to rebut my points?
Well, I would just start. I'll just give you why I loved it so much. I think I
Okay.
sort of probably look at the other end. I think it did a great job of setting up Abby and Ellie. Um, while it might seem forced to some people that it's sort of like similar arcs, like she's got a dead person in her life that she loved, and then she finds someone that she feels the need to protect. But in a world that's fallen and has grown up in that, and all you've really known is your community, I don't understand why people have an issue with the fact that that's almost characteristic. Like you want to hurt those who hurt you and your family, and you want to protect the people that you think need your help, and give that. Why not give that? That's. I think it's very close to that. So I grew to love Abby a lot, like in through her struggle of um, losing her dad through only something that. Yeah, yeah. Your dad's trying to literally save the world, and someone thinks that that's not good enough and shoots him in the face. That's trauma 101. I think they could use that in a psychology course. There's no way in hell that she's going to let that rest. But then for the rest of the time you're with her, you're grappling with that decision to go and get Joel. You can tell she regrets it in some ways, but then she remembers dad, and then she has the dreams, and then you can understand why she struggled. And I think where I bonded with her, and even probably with the Lev and Yara story, is that dream you have. You're running through the hospital, the lights are going off. You think you're going to see her dad, and you go in there and you see Aaron Yev hanging from the tree because you feel guilty of leaving there because they seem vulnerable. One's on the death row, the other one's being chased by their whole clan, and she knows what that's like. She knows what it's like to run as a firefly. So I think maybe some people have glossed over that a bit, and yes, it probably was a little bit more of a story about Abby, but again, where are you going to go with Ellie besides the fact that she wants to get revenge on, despite her struggles with Joel, her very realistic and very justified upset, feelings towards Joel. She still, you know, she still loves him like a father on some level and has struggled as well through all of their pain. So there's not much more you could have said with that about Ellie. Like I think the frustration I felt when she picked her bag up and left JJ and Tina, so well done. Like I played with Verity, my partner, as well, and we were both so frustrated. We were both like, "End the fucking game!" But no, she had to. She just had to get there because she herself was having panic attacks. And that's something I think people also. I don't know, like as me and you have spoken about this before, but I've suffered anxiety, and they've done a sensational job at capturing Ellie's anxiety attacks.
Yeah.
They,
Those like flashes in
I
the barn.
when she kills Mel and realizes Mel's pregnant and has a panic attack and everything else just goes out. That's like legitimately happened to me in my life.
Right.
So when that happens in the game and the way it comes across and the controller goes off without it so subtly that you don't know it's going off, so you just all of a sudden you're feeling elevated. I think that's what speaks to me about the story is they do so well at the emotion portraying those emotions. So she has that panic attack when she kills Mel. She has that panic attack when Joel's dying, and you don't hear anything else because all she's focused on is breathing and what she's going through at the time. So that's sensational. And then you get it again, and you can understand why she's off to go find Abby again, but you don't want her to because you know it's going to end badly.
Yeah.
And that's probably where I land on this story is it's perfect portrayal of both characters for what their ultimate quests are. And Abby was going to hurt a pregnant Dina out of that last ditch desperation until she looked at her, I guess, her guardian angel in Lev in some ways, and Lev was like, "No, stop! Like that's not you anymore." When it may have been her in the past, so that's probably why I connected with it so much, and I just loved everything they did with it, and I thought it was a perfect amount of time with both characters because I would have hated had you played with Abby through the game and she killed Joel later. I would have hated that because that would have been that trope of Hollywood. That would have been that bullshit. Why did she do that then? She could have done it at the first. So realistically, they did everything correct
How'd you feel
in
about the
that
length?
regard. I liked it. Like I didn't mind the length of the game. I've been waiting 7 years. I can probably invest a week and a half of my life into playing it in sections. I think we had a bit of a conversation about it as well. I think I was belting through it, so we both stayed up for the midnight launch. I was about 3 a.m. in that first night. I was absolutely smashing it. I was trying to get through as fast as possible, and when I just sort of said to myself, "Why am I doing that? Let's slow down and enjoy the game for what it was." And I haven't really done that with games before. I usually just try and crank it out because I want to Google it.
Yeah.
um,
which
but
is which
I,
is sort of the opposite experience of me because like I'm always someone that like looks in every drawer and reads every like tries to read every note to, like within reason and that sort of stuff. Depends on the game, I guess, like if you're getting presented with walls of text, but like in this case normally I would go through and read everything and check every corner and get all the resources and min max to that point. And like I sort of just got about probably halfway through the game and I was just like, I'm just not feeling this. And so then I started rushing through it, which is interesting because you sort of had the opposite experience. You were like, I'm just going to punch through this. And then you're like, actually, no, I want to slow down and experience it.
hmm,
Which I think
yeah, like when
actually,
we play Borderlands and you're in the fucking menu for 10 hours, and I just want to go to the Iridium Blights,
got to
like
min
Blights,
max.
whatever it is.
Got to min
And
max, man.
I'm
Got to
like, can you just
sell
sell
those
the
things.
fucking white gun and can we leave?
More slots
But in this,
means more gear, means more months.
but yeah, I won't talk. But next week we're going to talk about Lazarevich or Nathan Drake, who was worse, and the week after is why do you care so much about money in Borderlands?
We're
More
just gonna
shows coming
slide
up.
that and that Uncharted one in there to bridge the gap.
um, yeah, so I didn't mind the length because I thought you spent the perfect amount of time with both. Because then when you get to the battles against each other, when you battle as Abby versus Ellie, you kind of like, stop, Abby, I don't want you to do it. Then I had this moment where I was jumping up and down in my lounge room. It was a very real moment of like, just fucking let her up, let her out of the water, please, like, don't drown her. Like I had that very real reaction of just please just don't kill her, let her and Lev go be happy and join the Fireflies and just go home.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had
yeah.
that I genuinely thought, like, so Verity and I had talked at length through the game because she played with me. Through the game, we were both like, someone's going to die, someone's going to give. And in a way, it was a swerve because 20 hours later, when you think someone's going to die, one or the other, they don't, and then they get a kind of a happy ending, even through desperation like that. I love that, and that was
Yeah.
great because Naughty Dog introduced, like, it wasn't a Game of Thrones Red Wedding death-wise, but it was that same shock value for me that, oh my god, okay, Ellie is actually recovered, and that simple symbolism where, the dreams that Ellie was having about Joel was him dead on the ground and she couldn't see his eyes. But when she had Abby down under the water choking and she's about to die, then she had that flashback of Joel and she could see the eyes and she realized she's okay again in a way. I really like that simple thing because I'd noticed it in the journal and I noticed that was a theme through the game. And that just a simple, slight little nod to that theme just was enough for me to just be all in on that. And that 20 hours was justified to me or whatever. Well, I think I played 31 hours and 50 minutes for anyone playing at home because I like smashing glass. So that's how I landed on it. And a lot of that comes from the love of the concept of the story and the future and the realistic fungusy sort of thing. And
Yeah.
that's where I felt. I know you're
Yeah.
probably gonna now you're gonna take us through why you didn't think that any of that was legit. No, but
No, not at all. Not at all. Like I said,
there's
like
just so much
I'm still
connection for me.
like I still think it's an 8. I just think that there's some I think there's some just massive problems with the story. And like so it's interesting because you've said that you're on board with Abby. You're like, I love Abby, all about her, super keen. And see,
I want a DLC Naughty Dog. I need it.
yeah, there you go. Um, I
Deal.
just I just like didn't get behind Abby enough. Like I could see where like what they're trying to do. I could see that like it's that like that idea that like this revenge is just a constant like circle of like this person does something, then there's gets revenge, and then someone else gets revenge, and then someone else gets revenge, and there's that like running theme of like this is just going to keep happening and keep happening. And there's that idea of like Abby's story is like a condensed version of the short game. Oh, sorry, the first game, a shorter condensed version of the first game inside of the second game. So that you kind of build both characters up, and so like you said, when they kind of clash in the theater scene, you are kind of a little bit like, well, I don't want to kill Ellie, but I also don't want something bad to happen to Abby, kind of thing. I felt that, but a lot of the decisions that Abby made, I just like I couldn't get behind a lot of them, kind of thing, because I found that they sort of had a little bit of that kind of like I just didn't think she would do some of the things that she did.
Like what? Let's go for it.
Like
What do
like
you
the
think she
perfect
wouldn't do?
the perfect example is going back for the kids. Like a lot like she wouldn't go back for the scars, I don't think. Like she spent so much time like she spent so much time with the Fireflies, and then she had all that bad stuff happen to her, and she turned herself into a soldier and started fighting for the WLF. And the WLF has been fighting these scars for a long time. Like a long time, at least years, because we know from when we get to the island towards the end of Abby's section that the like profetual, whatever the fucking word is, the prophet figure that is the what's the phrase that they say, the lady with the braid
Right.
that has the like is what was that? Oh, you're gonna Google it. Just quickly Google it. Hang on, let me Google this.
You're gonna Google it.
You Google it. You Google it. I'll keep going. Like we know that she's dead. Like it's been long enough that they've established all of this stuff. She's become like this prophet to them, and then she's passed, and they're continuing on her ways, and she is this kind of revered figure still. So they've been fighting the scars for a long time, and then she's just like, I kind of have to go back for these scars, and they justify it by saying, well, she feels guilty for what she did to Joel. The people around her are reacting really badly to what she thought was what Joel deserved, and she now feels guilty for that, and she feels like she needs to like atone somewhat to do it. And like I think the way that she puts it in the game is I just needed to, or something along those lines, where it's like this is just something that I need to do to like feel better about myself, and to like kind of atone for the fact that I went across the country and murdered a dude with a golf club, like in front of his brother and his adopted daughter, kind of thing. Like I just don't buy that. But let's put that aside. I think her section is too long, and I think it's too long because the way that I feel about it is they're going for. I think I'm going to do a video on this, just explaining all of it. And I might put it on Twitch. So there's like socials down down here and like over
Little
there for
plug.
Josh. Cheeky plug my socials. So I might do it like that because I don't want to go through the effort of like editing the whole thing. But essentially, the story, what we're used to is a 3 act structure. A couple of games like Days Gone, but this one, for example, are going for a 5 act structure. But this game's 5 act structure, normally it would go 1, 2, 3, and then you would have another 2, and then you would have another 3. And the second act 2 and second act 3 would be a bit bigger than the first act 2 and the first act 3. This one goes 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So you have 2 ones instead of 2 threes. And so you basically get to this middle point, and then the game's pacing is destroyed. And you go to Abbey, and then you do all of Act 1 again. So you work up from that, and this comes with the game play systems as well, because you obviously need to, you start as Abbey, and you have, like, I don't know whether you would have had this, but like, that thing of like, oh, okay, I guess we're playing as Abby for a bit now. Yeah, cool. Okay. Oh, I'm picking up salvage and pills. Okay. I guess we might do like a little while as Abby. Okay, cool. And you go in and you start upgrading stuff, and then you find a one of the training manuals. And so, oh, okay, well, it's training manual. Okay, but when you find a training manual, if there's another like skill tree that can be unlocked, it reveals itself from the right hand side of the panel. And so you pick the first one up and you tap the middle touchpad button to go into the skill tree to see what the skills are, and another one slides out, and you're like, oh god, I guess there's another training manual. Oh, I guess there's a lot more Abby to go. And then you find a fourth one and it does the same thing. And you're like, there's another skill tree? Oh my God, how long does this thing go for? Like, holy. And it works out to be, I think is it about 10 hours? I think it's about 10 hours.
Yeah, about half the game.
Like, I feel like it would have been better off if they had yeah, so it's just too long. And so like there's kind of 2 ways I can come at this. Either shorten Abby's stuff down, so that it's got, like you probably throw it in 5 maybe, and you can kind of like get through it. You can get all of her motivations and stuff set up. And what I would probably do in that situation is cut all of the Lev and Yara stuff out. If you want to use those same sort of ideas of like rebuilding the relationship of Joel and Ellie with a different set of characters in the game, cool. You could probably do that within the WLFs. Leave the Scars as the faceless bad guys. Don't do any Yara Lev stuff, and kind of get through Abby stuff a bit quicker. Or, and this is where I was saying before about how I don't think that games are games are too long is a legitimate thing. I think this game actually should have been longer in that section, to the point where like maybe you flip back and forth between them, or maybe that section is just fully explored, because I felt like it was just all a little bit too rushed. It's kind of a little bit like, okay, so she did the thing and then she goes back for the kids, but then she needs to go like get a boat, and then she needs to take Lev home, and then there's a giant sort of end of that like section, and then she comes back, and then and like it's all just a little bit rushed and a little bit all over the place, and a little bit like kind of there's not a lot of motivation that's built up in there. So like make that section longer, essentially, is like do it justice and make it longer, and then make the game like 40 hours or something like that. And if I had to take a guess, I think that's probably what they were going for, and they were like, this is going to be like $1 billion and it's going to take 19 years, and Sony isn't going to be cool with this, so I guess we'll just have to cut some stuff and we'll get down to where we are. And they've kind of got down to this half. They haven't cut enough stuff to make it feel normal, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but they've left bits in that make it feel a little bit weird, which is where I think some people are like, it's too long. So that's kind of like my thoughts on the structure of it. But to keep talking, did you have any thoughts on that, or do you want to keep going?
I was just going to say, to go back to your first question that I thought was rhetorical, but then I realized you were asking me. May she guide us is probably what you're looking for. And yeah. I don't know if they mention, I can't recall it if they did. I could try and Google it for you, but I don't think they do mention her actual name. They just talk about her as her. So she's her.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
And I think
if she doesn't have a name.
Yeah. And I think that's what they were going for, man. Is I think they want to leave the scars as a faceless bad guys, and they do. So you find two outcasts who have been chased out,
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
they're now running away, and that's why Abby is like, oh, cool. I remember when I was running away from the fire, like from the world as well. When the Fireflies are on the run. So there's so much more to that than just glossing over that and saying, cool, we should have cut that whole thing out. Because if you cut the scars out, cut Yara and Lev out, and you don't get left with a lot of substance towards Ellie and sorry, Abby and her decisions later on.
Yeah,
I
but
think you
I'm
need
not
that.
saying that content wouldn't be in the game. I'm just saying that it wouldn't come from Lev and Yara, the two scars from the undeveloped faction that doesn't have a lot of stuff about them. That's a bit nebulous, really. Like, like you can see from the content that they have, it's like Lev has this kind of like identity crisis narrative that they're going through, where like the scars are not about it, and so they run away, and that probably isn't going to come from like, well, because what I would have said was do that stuff but do it within the wolves and just keep the like make Lev a upcoming soldier or something within the wolves or something like that if you were going to do the shorter version, and that way you can keep that thing short without needing to do all this other stuff in order to introduce this whole second faction and sort of build them up, because like we need enough context to know why Lev's been Lev. But you know what I mean? That's sort of where I was kind of coming from with that.
I
So
know where you're
I'm not
coming
saying
from,
cut it.
but
I'm just saying that you would rework that so that you don't have this kind of half a story in the middle of this other story.
that's like every action has a consequence, and that's what they're trying to say. And so you need that crossover into the enemy. You need Abby in some way to betray the wolves to get that out of the game. If you make Lev part of the wolves, then it's just another gaming trope, and it's just too boring and predictable. Everyone would pick that from a mile away. But in some ways, with the scars, you don't necessarily know it's going that way. Particularly that she's going to take live around the world with her. Because they even talk about going overseas, sort of thing. But that's like the whole harmonious thing. Like in a time of realistic turmoil and people fighting one side versus the other, that's such a good tool to use inside a game. Is like it's two outcasts and you feel like an outcast in a way and come together, and that's why she went back. And I probably completely disagree with you.
Yeah,
Actually, like
I think we do, which is
you
fine.
need that, and you need to leave them. If we know that they're a cult, if you've done any research into a cult, you can see what they're trying to hit with that. And that's perfect for it. If you don't know too much about a cult and it sort of goes over your head a little bit, you just think they're religious crazies. That probably speaks to some other people as well. It's all about life experience, right? So you'll take a lot more out of the game depending on how your life has gone. So that's why I don't know. I just think you need that whole coming together. As much as that is a cliche, but that's the only thing they're fighting for in that world. What else are they fighting for? They're not fighting for money. You go into a bank and there's cash everywhere, and they don't take it, for example, because that's showing that there's nothing except people, community, and I guess love and hate. And I guess I think even Neil Druckmann said that. I think if you remove any of that, then and make that shorter, then you just gloss over that. It becomes another trophy video game, and I probably wouldn't have liked it as much. I
But
probably would have said the
like
story's rushed.
again, I'm not saying remove it. I'm saying tweak it, because I don't think that they did a good job with the scar
Saying
stuff.
remove it out of the scars and put it into the wolves,
Yeah,
and then keep
yeah.
I don't think that's as. I think that just betrays the whole entire concept. What they're trying to.
No, I think the only thing the only thing I think that would make difficult is the potentially make difficult that trans narrative. It makes it more difficult to justify what happens to Lev if you take it out of that kind of cult situation and you say like, okay, Lev is like a young wolf soldier. Well, okay, well, we had like more acceptance and stuff like that, so people would be probably okay with it in the wolves, and so it makes that chain a little bit less, because it's very upfront when they say we're a religious cult and Lev is a girl and therefore he needs to have a wife, and it's like that's just super obvious. It's like, here's all the information that you need. Whereas it, like, yeah. So I don't think there would have been any trouble. And again, not saying remove that stuff. I'm just saying I didn't like it. And I think we just have to agree to disagree. Because the other opinion that I've heard as well is that, like, it's designed to be a slow burn. you're supposed to not, or not supposed to not enjoy it, but it's designed to be long, and it's designed to not feel necessarily like conventional, and it's designed to have all the stuff in it that is supposed to be in it, which is kind of what you're saying with like Neil Druckmann saying that that's what he wanted out of the game. And yeah, I guess I didn't like it. Like a bunch of the things that Abby did kind of like lent into just motivations that I just wasn't sort of feeling. I didn't get behind her that much. And then so like when it comes to the Ellie and Abby confrontations, I'm 100% on Ellie's side. Although I do still like wish that Abby wasn't doing what she was doing or whatever. But yeah, like I was always on Ellie's side, and I was always like what's the word? Like sympathetic to Ellie's narrative over Abby's narrative. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, we could probably go in circles with this sort of stuff.
Just quickly, I think the story arc that you're looking for there within the Wolves, it goes by a character named Owen. They sort of touch on that a little bit. They've got someone who shoots someone in his own team because he feels bad about murdering a human when he realizes this old man has just given up, and that's what makes him guilty. And that's why he decides to get into a scuffle with his friend, and then he accidentally shoots Danny. So I think that's the story you're looking for. It's in there, all in there.
No, that's it's not the story that I'm like that I'm looking for at all. But I can understand what you're saying. Yeah, like there's a lot in this as well. Is the other thing is like there is a bunch of different stories that are going on. Like there's Abby Owen's story, there's Abby Lev's story. Like to a degree, there's like Yara kind of tacked onto that a little bit. There's Ellie Dina, there's Ellie Joel, and then there's like Ellie at the end with like the whole like end sequence. So there's a lot going on. Like yeah, what's going on?
Anyway. On simplistically, that's because that's how life is. You don't always get the answers, and I think it's a good capture of the real world. Like that's just anyway. That's how I feel about it. Like that's a very simplistic way to look at it, but every bullet that you shoot and every person that you kill, that's the whole second game is built on that fact that you kill a faceless doctor and that doctor has a family. There's consequences 100%. For that.
Yeah, and that's that revenge narrative that sort of runs through it, which I'm like I said at the start of this section, like I'm 100% behind what they were trying to do with the story. 100% love it all. I just don't think it was executed as well as they could have done. That's all.
You enjoyed killing Alice, didn't you?
Which one was Alice again?
The dog. Oh,
the dog. Sorry, I thought you said Ellis. Ellis, like yokel Ellis kind
Alice,
of thing.
No, Alice.
Yeah, no, I definitely.
Alice, didn't you?
But that's a perfect example of where, like, I think they didn't do a very good job because they're like, murder this dog, and you're like, hey, like, I've been murdering dogs since Hillcrest. Like, you guys are like, hey, there's dogs, and then like basically was straight away put me in the scent line of a dog, which is a tutorial, but you know, that's what you do. And then you've been murdering dogs for like 3 or 4 chapters. They're everywhere. They're a pain in the ass. And then you get to Alice and it's like, feel bad. And it's like, I'm not going to feel bad. And then after that, they're like, oh, but that like dog was loved by other people. And it's like, that's a perfect example of like, it's a great idea. I'm not going to, like, I don't know to feel when I feel. And then you go back and it's like, oh, Alice is cute. And you know that she gets murdered. That's a shame. You know, like, it didn't, that sort of stuff didn't land with me. And same with, like, there's a bunch of stuff too where, like, you go through as Ellie, you do all this stuff. You know, you kill the lady with the PSP who's playing Hotline Miami with Hydrogen playing, and if you stop and you listen, you can hear the Hotline Miami music. It's great. I love that. I'm not sure whether you would get that reference, but you know, you kill the lady with the PSP, you kill Nora, you kill Mel, you kill Owen. You know, like I think there's a section you might kill Bear. I'm not 100% sure, but you go through and do all these horrific things, and then you restart as Abby, and you see what all of these people were like. You know, Nora was, I think, Mel was definitely having second thoughts, and she was not keen on what happened to Joel, and she was kind of putting on a strong front and being like, yeah, no, it had to happen, the guy was a fucking asshole, but he had inner conflict over that. And then like Nora wasn't super keen. Like I can't remember if Owen had much of an opinion on that because they were doing other stuff with Owen, but like the lady with the PSP is in the base. one of the wolf bases that you end up in. Like you see all, Alice. You get to throw a toy for Bear. I think you get to throw a ball for and pat him, and then later on you get to throw the toy for Alice, and it's this really kind of cute moment where like, it's Yara because you're looking for Lev. You're walking around the aquarium with Yara. Yara, it's Yara, yeah.
All right, yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
it's Yara.
Okay, I've been saying Yara this whole time. It's like, no, that's Susan. Susan. It's like, but you get to throw the toy for Alice and everything, but it all comes on the wrong side of, like, it's communication more so than it's emotional weight for me. It was like, oh, that person was a person, and that person was having second thoughts, and that dog was cute, and people loved that dog, kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, okay, cool, fair enough. But it's that kind of like, yeah, revenge story that's wound through everything that I'm 100% behind. And I like the fact that we haven't talked at all about like Dina and Ellie and like the business with we did talk a little bit about the flashbacks, but like, I like that Ellie still went. I didn't want her to, but I like that she did, kind of thing. And
You mean went after Abby at the end?
Yeah,
Is that what you meant?
Yeah, went after Abby. Yeah, and then I also really like that Dina then left. She was like, "I'm not fucking putting up with this anymore, man. This is too much," kind of thing. And she bailed out, kind of thing. Yeah, like, cool. I think we should move on.
And I ended up didn't like Tommy when he came back and did that to Ellie, because I was so convinced that Ellie should just stay home, suffer her PTSD at home, and leave Abby alone. Tommy came over and ruined everything for Dina.
Damn it, Tommy.
Oh, Tommy.
Oh, Tommy. Okay. Gameplay. So, yeah. Any thoughts? What do you think about the gameplay? We sort of touched on it a little bit, like the prone. We touched on the glass. There's a couple of other additions that I can think of, which is like the rope physics. The rope physics are pretty dope. Big fan of the rope physics. The levels are a little like fucking a lot bigger. The levels are a lot bigger, which I'm definitely about. Like, I guess, is there anything that you wanted to sort of say about any of that sort of stuff? Anything that you found?
As I said before, I enjoyed it. I think it made you pick your favorite weapons a lot more than any other game. Like, I was enjoying a Molotov cocktail over of certain guns and arrows and things like that. So I think it does a good job at, like, you can use what you've got and you come strategic with that. I enjoyed that. I felt like it was a bit easier to get lost a little bit in the weapon selection this time around, because it was pretty tight. I think it was pretty well done. There's a lot to use, and you didn't have to use it all, which was nice. And the stealthing was pretty fun. As I said before, it made me want to do the stealthing, which I had never really done before. And yeah, the levels were cool. They were nice and big. I think sometimes they cram a lot of enemies into a small space, and however realistic that can become a little bit frustrating gameplay wise, because I don't know, sometimes you feel a bit claustrophobic, like you try and sprint away, like, haha, I'm gonna get away around this corner just for a second to put a health back on, and then some gigantic beats the shit out of you with that hammer thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, now I'm going back all the way to the start and I have to figure it out again.
Yeah.
And which is just kind of problem solving, but at the same time, sometimes that grains a bit on me.
Yeah, I think that's where we're talking a little bit about that before. It's like you might spend like 20 minutes and you're like, I'm gonna just stealth up here and I'm gonna stabby and then I'm gonna just stealth over here and I'm gonna like I'm gonna wait for my perfect moment, and then you hear that like as you start getting like detected, you're like, where the fuck's that coming from? You dart back into cover and then you kill another guy and you get through like maybe 4 or 5 of them. And I don't know whether this is the case, but I'm like 80% sure that if you get discovered, it spawns more dudes. Because like,
oh, me too.
You might get through like 8 out of 10 that you can kind of see and hear with the listening mode, and then you get detected by one of them or something, and then like 5 dudes run out of the nearest building, and it's just like, for fuck's sake, oh my god. Or you're like you said, like you'll break out into combat and then get killed because like 5 dudes run out of somewhere you weren't tracking, and then just like just murder you, like absolutely axe you, and then you're back at the start of that section, and it's like, I'm not stealthing through this again. There's no way, no way I'm gonna stealth through this again. And
then you do it second time and you knock it over in 3 seconds. And I was like,
No,
ah!
you don't do it the second time. You murder
There's some areas
you
like
murder
that.
the first two people, and then you just shoot everyone else. You just like stab this guy, that guy's over there. All right, let's whip the rifle out, shoot him with the scope. That goes bang. Everyone's like, "Whoa, I think there might be someone here." Yeah, it's great. But I think one of the interesting things about that, actually, I think is kind of leans on one of the awesome things about the game, which is that the levels are so much bigger and so much more organic. So like, there's so much going on in the level design is just top notch. It is phenomenal. It is so good. There's like, the levels feel so organic, but with the exception of the exit, sometimes it is extremely difficult to find the exit. But with the exception of the exit, it's really obvious where there's pathways, but they all feel organic. It's like quite obvious what you need to do, or you're going to run across what you need to do and be presented with a problem, and then that's when you go into problem-solving mode and you need to fix it. Yeah, like there, because of that organicness, the bigger spaces become this much more kind of like a vibrant thematic thing. So you come to like a corner and there's like a coffee shop on the right hand side, and there's like a games workshop on the top floor on the left hand side, and there's some like a beauty store or something on the bottom floor, and all that kind of stuff. And like the cover is all cars. There's so much less like, this is a cement block and this is a cement block and this is a jump on it. Yeah, this is a perfectly cubular sack of grain. And like, there's none of that. It's all coffee shop counters, tables, cars, like maybe risers with grass on them. That's another thing too, the grass.
And then the industrial wheelie bin that you have to send down the hill and then run down the hill and open up the fucking gate, and then it goes through, which was cool, and then acknowledges it in the dialogue. That was cool.
That's actually like another point too, which is what I was going to get to, which is the environmental puzzles. I feel like in this one are a lot better. Like, I can't remember too many of the environmental puzzles in the first one, but I remember them, maybe incorrectly, being things like in the hotel where there's a piano, and it's like, gee, I wonder how to get up here, and you're standing directly next to a piano, and so you're like, I guess I just fucking push this piano over here, kind of thing. Whereas in this one, you actually had to think about stuff. Like, if you're exploring, there's more environmental puzzles. I don't think there's many on the critical path. But if you're exploring, there's like rope puzzles that you've got to like throw a rope over a thing. I wish they had done more with the rope other than just throw it over a thing, because there's a lot of that. But like, the rope physics are cool. You have to like throw it over a thing and then swing on it. The dumpster thing that you just mentioned with the angled like ramp,
a hill,
yeah,
the ramp, the garage shop ramp where cars come out.
Yeah, that's right. Like, that was super cool. There's a little bit of the like moving the dumpster stuff around, but I feel like they kind of like, where previously it was like move a dumpster or like move a plank, they've kind of thought of 6 or 7 different things. I think I might have only moved a plank once or twice in the whole game, which is a big departure. Yeah, like
a
things
good
like
one though.
Yeah, a good
like
one.
Only when it was necessary.
Yeah,
you walk the plank.
That's it.
I fell off the one at the boat with Abby so many times. We're in that shed with Mel and Co. And you put it on the you go onto the boat, and I just kept fucking falling off it because I'm a knob.
Yeah, that section I think I fell off once, and it was because I put the plank down. Like, I think it wanted you to put it here, and so you would jump off the end and land on the rope, and I kind of put it off to the right a little bit, and then it was just like not having it. I like fell straight. I think I fell off it trying to jump on the rope, because she was like, like Assassin's Creed, where it's like you hold left on the stick and you jump straight into a wall or something. Yeah, I had one of those situations, but yeah, like the environmental puzzles are way better. I don't think they had enough of them, to be honest. There's less than in the first game from memory. Or is there? No, there's more, but I think they take like a smaller percentage of the gameplay. Yeah. I think they used the clickers a lot less too, actually. Like, they were definitely going for like a people-on-people narrative. Like, the important thing is the people, which I think is a missed opportunity, because I actually really like the zombies. Like, I really like the I really like the zombies. I like them. Like the clicker, like particularly at the start with Ellie, she's got the knife. The knife makes clickers less scary than the runners, because they have no eyes, and now you can just murder them. You don't need a shiv, or you don't need a consumable to kill them. You can just kill them with a knife, and that there's a little bit of tutorialization in that, and there's a little bit of like Ellie is a more proficient killer now. She's not the 13-year-old that she was. So like I can sort of see that, but like the clickers aren't as dangerous as the runners, and so therefore they're not as scary as the runners anymore. And
because I'd say because if you grow up with something, you get used to it.
yeah,
That's how
but
I would argue. That makes a lot of sense that there was less and less because you're not gonna if you are born in that world, you're not gonna go headfirst into those mofo's. Like you know to stay away as much as you can, even if you're immune.
yeah, but like you're running through a city that you're not familiar with, kind of thing. Like they're just.
Yeah,
I just feel like they could have used them a little bit more. And like part of that too is that the horde technology stuff. Like I don't know whether you would necessarily call it like technology per se, but like the few sections where they have the hordes that kind of all just
yes, they didn't use that enough.
like yeah, yeah, they probably could have used it a little bit more. Like I wouldn't want it to become something that became tired. Like I'd be more happy with them not using it enough than I would with them being like, and here's a horde, and here's a horde, and it becomes, like frustrating and overdone and overused and shit. But I really liked that technology, but they probably could use it once or twice more. I think you just spend so much time killing. Particularly, one of my big problems is the two sections where you're going towards the aquarium. You just spend so much time going towards the fucking aquarium, man. Like, and it's not like.
Well, I've never been to Seattle, so I quite enjoyed it. Just saying.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Like, just for me, it wasn't like I feel like this game didn't do as good a job, and maybe it's because of the companions. Because okay, I've got two things that I need to kind of like concepts that I need to cover. The first one is I think this game missed a massive opportunity with the characters and missed the idea that like one of the things that made the first game so good is that you spend the entire time that with someone that you can like you can't, but the main character can bounce ideas off. So like the main character, Joel, can be like, hey Ellie, come and do this or whatever. Or like, and so there's moments in that game where Ellie sees something cool and she's like, oh hey, this is cool. Like when she sees the arcade machine, and she's like, it's just, like she says something along the lines of like she likes arcade machines or like what's this or whatever, or like if you don't progress for a little while, she like and there's a few sections where she pulls out this book of jokes and she'll like just read a few jokes and like Joel will go full like dad and be like but like it's developing the relationship between the two. And this game is at its very very best when it's doing those things, when it's got like the Abby and Lev going through the skyscraper. Easily one of the best sections in the game. Dina and Ellie at the start in the non-linear section, the best, my favorite section of the game, easily. And just because like it's got that Last of Us banter, it's got the Last of Us character building, it's got the Last of Us kind of like slow burn stuff where it's like you go into that open world section, they're like, hey, not a lot of wolves here. Thought there'd be more wolves. You kind of get up into the the other section and they're like, okay, let's tell the story of like the city. What's the name of the Fedka or something like that? The Fedra, that's it. Fedra, the like militarized pre-war organization, slowly turning into or being like succumbed by the resistance that then became the wolves. Like that's a slow burn, and you could miss a bunch of that if you didn't do all the extra little side content. But like I really liked that section, and like you would see something and then Ellie would say something and then Dina would bounce something back off you. Or like there's that scene in the music shop which is like really really tidy, and like Ellie sits down and plays guitar, but it's so much more meaningful because like Dina comes over and Ellie's playing guitar for Dina and Dina's kind of just there, and it's still very early, so like the wounds are still very raw and open. Like that's when the game is singing. the most. You know, even Abby Manny, like even that Abby Manny dynamic is great. Like the kind of like Manny's kind of, you know, they've got that kind of, what's the word, like they're roommates, and so
Bros.
they've got that, yeah, they've got that like they're talking shit about each other, they're bouncing shitty ideas off each other, that sort of stuff. That shit's when the game's singing. There's two giant sections of gameplay, and I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any gameplay where there isn't a companion, but there's two giant sections of gameplay that don't do a good job of establishing the goals, which was the other point that I wanted to make. Like, they don't do a good job. The first game did such a good job of being like, we need to get to the bridge because the bridge is the way out of Boston, and if we get to the bridge, then we're out of Boston, we're free of the hunters. And then you're sort of like, okay, cool, well, we need to avoid this truck because that truck's going to murder us. Okay, we need to make our way through this hotel. Okay, because we can need to get over there. Okay, yeah, cool, let's get through this hotel, whatever. And then in the middle of all of that, again, because they had characters with them, you can interject all these into little tiny bits of story, like the bit with Ellie saving Joel and then not being rewarded in any sense by Joel. And then they get outside and Joel's like, okay, you know what? Here's a rifle. I need you to protect me. I'm going down. Like, that's cool interaction with like those little tiny middle goals. The big long sections with Abby when you first start, actually it's just after you get dropped off by Manny because you want to go and talk to Owen about him supposedly killing Danny, I think is the way that kind of pans out. So you're just Abby by yourself going to the
forest,
to the aquarium, right? And there's no goal at all until you, like, other than we gotta get to the aquarium, guys, for like a long time. And then there's obviously at the end of that you do the forest section. You meet Lev and Yara, and then you have to do that section where you're basically like almost at the aquarium, and you kind of make your way through the boat and bits and pieces kind of thing. So like, you know, like, and then there's the same section as Abby, and it's like, gotta get to the aquarium. No, sorry, same section as Ellie, and they're like, we got to get to the aquarium, and it's the same thing. It's like, Abby's at the aquarium. Let's do an hour of gameplay where Abby's at the aquarium, and that has the boat stuff, which is great gameplay, but it still just does nothing for the story. It just sort of drags. And so, like, yeah, I feel like those sections really kind of affected me a little bit. Again, I had lots of fun with them, but they just felt like they were long and drawn out and unneeded. And it kind of speaks a little bit back to the length conversation that we keep coming back to a little bit here and there, which is like, I would have rather those sections be half the length than cut stuff out kind of thing. Or you could have put more story in kind of thing. You could have put, where I say that I would have preferred a longer game or a shorter game, those sections could have been shorter or had stuff in them that opened the scars up a bit more, or that like gave a little bit more context to like Abby's story or stuff like that. But instead, they're just long sections of gameplay that are just kind of like, they're there so that you can see all these cool encounters that Naughty Dog did. And the encounters are tops, but yeah, went on a long tangent away from the level design.
Yes, I can see what you mean, and I could probably agree. Yeah, yes, you can do away with some of those long sections, but that's fair enough. That's like any game, though. You can make that argument with almost anything. So I think it's just maybe they just got it wrong with some of their selection on what encounters, and obviously maybe you never know. They're probably just trying out their own skills and mechanics and seeing where they're at for whatever they do next. Whatever that is, you never know what they could be trialing, because as we saw the Lost Legacy, they carry everything forward. So
yeah, that's right.
Or they might have just been wanting to give people a longer time in those, because at times, I think sometimes in the first game, I saw some criticisms that there wasn't enough of the stealthing and moving through. So it's just a balance issue.
Exactly. Like if people feel like it's too short, they whinge. If people feel like it's too long, they whinge.
Yeah.
If it's in the middle, I whinge. So
yeah. But back to gameplay, you raised something that I wanted to talk about, was the noise when they can see you, the chung, that whatever that is.
Yeah.
That is great. That is amazing. It makes you grip the control a little bit tighter. I did so much of like sprinting over and just just Supermaning down straight into grass, or And what I found was cool was I kind of wish that my character would die every time I did this because I've spoken to you this before. I don't play games like I just gung ho things sometimes, and I so many times I was running along, an enemy would spot me and I need to dive out, so I'd hold down circle and dive. Abby or Ellie would go head first into a ledge that you're meant to be climbing on, and they were gonna go like that. I really wish that they would fucking die when you did that. Like, I wish they just impaled themselves because that, because there's so many
Bonk.
times where I like had them head first straight into a ledge, straight off a cliff or something stupid, and they survived. I'm like, damn it, that would have been fun if they died. That might be one of the letdowns of the gameplay. Kill them when you do stupid shit. allow the hitbox to register. But yeah, I like that feeling of like it's the world's getting smaller because they can see you and you got less and less room to hide. That's cool.
Yeah.
I still kind of hated throwing the bottles because every time you like the bottles were like, it's a great idea with the clickers and stuff. Like sometimes you throw a bottle or a brick or something, and sometimes the radius isn't big enough for me. I think like if you throw something in the shed and it smashes, it's gonna go. And this kind of doesn't do that sometimes, like the clicker or the fucking stalkers, or an enemy don't hear your bottle
Fuck
even
the
though you break.
stalkers.
And I remember when I was playing that for the first
So
time, I
scary.
texted you immediately.
Yeah.
That first bit was horrible. I hate horror,
Yeah.
and this is the only horror I get
That's the
through. But
best. That's the
fuck,
best introduction to like one of the enemies, except maybe the Rat
oh,
King. But like, yeah, the stalkers. Like, you just like end up in that building and it's so scary. Everything's dark. You've got your flashlight. You're just like, where are they at? And
and that
they're programmed to flank you as well. So you're like, oh, they over here, and they just attack you from the side, and it's just like, oh
and
shit.
then they run away when you face them, and that's
Yeah,
frustrating but so good. And then I love when you're introduced to them and you see that one in the hallway, and then it pisses off like Gollum. I'm coming up to every corner, just kind of like I'm scared as shit. That's when Verity started playing actually, because I got so scared that I needed someone with me.
pussy.
Yeah, but I do not like horror, and it speaks to why I don't know why I love this game so much. Who would have thunk that my favorite story ever is a horror game? But anyway, that they are cool. I think the zombie selection is so cool in this one, like showing like they even make a
Yeah.
mention of how nature's evolving to continue to get this fungus to go crazier, and all the cool visuals of the growth everywhere was amazing. And that hospital bit was fucking awesome.
Oh, the
Where
hospital
you
bit is such a good
the
section.
whole thing.
It's
Um,
it's like an indie horror game inside of The Last of Us. Like it's
yes,
so good, man.
like
So good.
relics of a pandemic, who
Yeah.
relics of a pandemic shutting down the world versus here's the growth that's taken over and
Yeah,
they
and
couldn't
like
stop it, so they left
it's
it.
ground zero, so it's the longest
Yes.
like stuff that's been around, and like the power is off. Yeah,
Oh,
and it's a
and
slow
then the power on.
it's a slow build. It's like you need to look in 4 different rooms, and obviously it's programmed so that the last box is the one that you. Oh no, I guess it would be the one in the ambulance, but you probably I can't remember exactly, but you probably need to get all 3 anyway. But
Yeah.
uh yeah, it's like the slow build where it's like I need to get a box. It's like, oh yeah, here's one. Oh, there's probably one in that other section down that hallway. And then you like go down the hallway and it's like, oh my god, and they're like, there's no power. Oh well, not gonna get this door open then. You're gonna need to put the power back on. You're like, okay, fuck, where's the power? And you can hear the clickers, like I think it's clickers. They might be stalkers, but like banging on the inside of some of the rooms, the quarantine rooms, and you're like, oh god, I have to turn the power on, and now all these doors are gonna open. Yeah, it's really really good. And then obviously it climaxes at the end with the Rat King. That's great. Like that's really really top notch. Really top notch.
So cool that they tried to represent evolution through that thing. That was so cool. I loved it. Like
It's
they've
like,
all mutated on the wall together. Look at this gargoyle Mike
yeah.
Wazowski looking motherfucker.
Yeah, they've like let's
Uh,
become this one being host thing. Yeah, for sure. To
that's
your
so cool.
to your point about the stealth radius thing, I think it's worth mentioning. I haven't dug into them at all. I need to dig into them, but like the accessibility mechanics in this game are fucking crazy, like crazy. I've heard only good things. I like you'll need to look this up somewhere else because like I really can't speak to it. But the couple that I've heard of, it's so uncanny that like I've in this last couple like last week or so because I've been like I really don't like how I can't see where I'm being detected from because it puts me in this situation where like all I do is hear noise and I have no means to like handle it other than just running back to wherever the cover was that I was and hoping that the direction that they're seeing me from is because I came out from behind that cover and not because like someone behind me has walked out from a corner or something like that, right? There's an accessibility setting to basically turn on like hearing direction stuff. I guess it would be probably a deaf accessibility setting so that you can visually see where that detection is coming from rather than need to hear it with the headphones. That's like something that I wanted. I was like that point where I was talking about where I was like, I don't know whether I can keep going through all these levels because they're so big. I probably didn't go enough into that point, but basically like the levels in this game are so much bigger, probably like 3 or 4 times as big as the first one, and they've got a ton of non-linear paths, which was another thing that I wanted to say. Basically, like Naughty Dog has taken that idea from Uncharted 4, where it's like we're going to let you climb up 3 or 4 different ways to get to the one point, and spread that like out PS4 into like you might have 5 or 6 different sort of ways that you can weave your way through a section to get to it. There's always the one end, but like you can climb up onto this and then jump over here and then get down here and then go through this building, or like you can go a completely different direction. You can go right and then down the other side of the street and blah blah, or you can jump between different things that go down the middle of the street. Like they've taken that to a whole nother level. But because of that, the levels are much bigger. Because they're much bigger, they're much more unruly to try and complete because there's a bunch of different sections. And often it will be like, let's say, like there's a section where you basically have like 2 or 3 streets that run down between like apartment buildings, and so to completely cover that, you need to go through the first building, back up the street, through the second building, back up the street, through the third building, and then you can continue. And I was like, it'd be really good because I think they've shrunk the radius where you can actually pick things up. So if you open a drawer and take like one step back, you can't pick it up anymore. You can see it, but it stopped you being able to press triangle to pick it up. And so like you need to be like really close to everything to pick it up, which means you need to like get really close to everything in the level to get all of the resources. So if you're low on resources or something like that, it can be a real pain to kind of go through and do all that stuff. There's basically a setting called high contrast mode, and obviously it's for people that are like have a visually impaired, where it's a little bit difficult to see fine details. So we'll just put it all in high contrast mode. It's a common thing in computers for a while, like for a long time now, and they've put it in this. That's basically a mode for me. Like you can I think you can swipe it on and off with the touchpad, and it basically just highlights enemies in red, allies in blue, I think, and the pickups in yellow. So like you can go through and do a level normally, and then if you're like, oh, I'm pretty done with this and it's been a while, I just want to be done with it and move on, swipe on high contrast mode, go around, pick up all the stuff that's yellow, and then fuck off. It's great. It's such a good idea. And then like, I would recommend to everyone that they change the boat controls over to R2 to accelerate, because normally it's push forward on the left stick and steer with the left stick, which is uncoordinated in 2020. This isn't the PlayStation 1. And so like I would change that over to R2, like hands down. There's like slow motion in there. You can pretty much play the game entirely by sound. Like there's a tons of visual aids in there for all sorts of different, like it's really, really good. The accessibility settings are crazy. And like, not only that, but like I was saying, like they're useful for reruns if you want to pick stuff up or whatever like basically they're just useful for even people that don't want to like that don't have the problem that these things are supposed to allow accessibility for. They're useful for normal people to just tweak your gameplay experience, man. It's great. 100% top notch. Really, really good.
And I saw a tweet on Twitter somewhere that a blind player or a player who has disability or an issue with some of the way video games are done makes it hard for him. He was able to play start and finish on his own because of the settings. So that's a massive achievement. I've seen a couple of people put up on Twitter that they, whether they're blind or whatever, they've been able to get through the whole game. So that's a huge achievement from the team.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast today actually, and they were talking about how there basically was a guy at GDC who did a presentation about he is, I believe he's blind. Yeah, is he deaf? No, he's blind. He's blind. And so normally his wife will play through things for him. And he'll kind of like just go along the way and experience them, because obviously a lot of the games he can't play. And he really, like, long story short, he really wanted to be able to do that for his wife. He wanted to have a game that he could play through, and his wife could watch him play through, and she could experience like in the other way around, which is like such a cute, awesome, like little thing to do. And they flew him back, like Naughty Dog flew him out several times in order to get these accessibility features right, so that you can do that. You can play it through entirely with sound. Like, it's crazy, crazy awesome, good stuff.
It's awesome.
Yeah, really awesome stuff. Yeah, I mean, like,
PS5. Everyone on board making PS5 games, make that a thing that has to be part of every game going forward.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's
Bring Naughty Dog. They have the blueprint.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much it, man. That's pretty much it. Like, the same podcast, basically, a game director, Mike Bithell, was saying like a big part of that sort of stuff is just the idea. Like, a lot of the effort is going into exactly how we're going to solve this problem. Once someone's solved it, like, game developers are very good at ripping stuff off. And so, like, over the last few years, accessibility has become a much bigger conversation, which is great. And like games like Gears of War 5, and Naughty Dog's The Last of Us 2, and like a bunch of games have just really, really improved their accessibility, which is great. And it should only get better. And obviously, we've got the blueprint for all that stuff now. Yeah. Let's do closing thoughts. Anything in particular that you wanted to close out on? I feel like we touched on a bunch of stuff and probably didn't dig into too much really deep, but yeah.
We'll come back. Part 2. It was 7 years, we'll do part 2.
Yeah, 7 years, we'll do a part 2.
I just loved it, really.
Great game. I recommend it. I would recommend it to anyone. I really would. Like I had my problems with it, and probably poorly articulated them here. But I had my problems with it, but it's still amazing. Like it's still one of those things where, like, technically it's a fucking crazy achievement. Like, we didn't talk at all about like the sound or the animations or anything. That's all, like, from that perspective, it's amazing. Still recommend it for everybody.
It's easily my favorite game of all time now. It's beat The Last of Us Part 1.
Wow.
I think this is better, but in context of the entire story. So whether or not you count that as everything, I think I've told you this before. For whatever reason, this whole world I've just connected with. It's my favorite story of anything, TV show, movie, game. So I loved it. I'm glad what they did with it. I'm glad they didn't come out and do anything different. There's some things everyone wants to change, but holistically they nailed it. I'm glad that the hatred comes through, and I'm glad that you feel what you feel if you play with emotion, and that's something that I definitely do. So well done to them. I'm very thankful that I got to do it, because I didn't. When you finish the first game, you don't ever think you're going to get another one, because they didn't need to go for it. They did, and they didn't hurt it, in my opinion. They didn't hurt it in any way. I think that's a delicate thing. Even if you didn't like the second one, I don't think a lot of people have said that it hurt the value of the world either. I think that's also an incredible achievement that people need to be aware of, is they didn't destroy what they've created. They just expanded it. Love it. They expanded it. I think that's amazing.
That's part of being a mature.
The game technically is incredible.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just in case you're aware, it's a 10 out of 10. I was just gonna say, like, that's part of being a mature consumer as well. Like, I get fucking super frustrated with some of the shit in this game, but like, it's you can easily recognize that like the stuff that I have problems with are personal problems that, like, aren't. Everyone is not going to have them, and like, I still can recognize that while I wasn't 100% great on all of it, I still think they did a really, really good job. And like, to your point about hurting the franchise, this, I think, is again a similar sort of situation with where like, it's like, I don't know where they go from here. But you know, I don't think they did too much damage to it. It'll be interesting to see if they make a third one 20 years from
Don't
now.
do it.
When
Don't think they should.
well,
It's just new. It's got to be brand new. It can't be this story again.
yeah, well, like I guess just strategically from Naughty Dog's perspective, you think about like they've just done part 2. They've said that they're not coming back to Uncharted, at least in the Nathan Drake kind of stuff. So
Oh,
you know,
they did
like
do
the
the
next
cheeky 2-team thing for The Last of Us, so maybe they have been doing it. They've got a PS5 launch or close to launch game
2-team
coming.
thing.
And they have a 2-team squad going at the end of the start of The Last of Us's life. I'm pretty sure they set up a new team to get it
Not
done.
sure. Maybe. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I guess it depends on what you would consider 2 teams. That's pretty common for like pre-production to start when the like previous game's getting mastered and that sort of stuff. So you'd end up with, I guess, what you would call 2 teams. But yeah. Yeah, but basically my point was just that like they've said they're not doing any more Uncharted. They've said that they've now just released part 2 of The Last of Us. So I think probably the next couple of games we see from Naughty Dog is going to be new IP, to be honest. Because the only other thing that they have that I can think of is Jack. Right?
They already said they weren't going back after they did the concept development.
Yeah,
they did the concept art and they decided they've moved into realism and they're going to stay grounded and they're not going to pick it up again. Well, that might change, you know.
Yeah,
joke about it, but
I mean, like, I guess like they
that.
could. I don't think they will, but yeah. So that's why I'm saying like I think the next couple of games will be new IP. It'll be new stuff.
Crash 4 is coming out with 100 levels, my friend. So who knows? Sell it to Activision. Get everything out there.
I was going to say that's Activision, isn't it?
Yeah. Sell everything to Activision. Just be done with gaming. You've made your $1 billion. No.
No more Neil Druckmann.
I don't really hope. But one thing on this as a company, we've also spoken about this. So we've both grown up with Naughty Dog, so we both were into Crash, and then moved on to Jack, and then moved on to Uncharted, moved on to Last of Us. And as we got older, so the company, I just kind of really hope they finally like go into something brand new because they've spent 2 generations on 2 games. Really want to see them do something different, and it might even refresh them a little bit. I hope they do something new and something that we haven't thought of. It would just be a nice shift for them, and I think for the gamers as well. Like as much as I'd like to get a DLC on the Scars or Abby or Fireflies or Tommy when he was younger or whatever, I think if that came in 5 or 6 years, that would be better than if we had something in the middle. It'd be much better.
I think. I think they'll definitely at least do one like, what's the word?
Legacy style.
I wasn't going to say Lost Legacy. I was going to say Left Behind style. Like I think they'll definitely do something like that.
Some chapters.
Some chapters. It's just like you think it's just that like what's the word? The like for lack of not being able to communicate, like the economy of it is you put however much money, fucking $300, $400, $500 billion, however much money they spent on this game, into The Last of Us Part 2. It's just economical to make a standalone piece that's a few hours that reuses all of the assets and even maybe some of the geometry that you've like the level stuff that you've put together, and then sell that on for $20-$30. Half the price of that. I don't think like Naughty Dog sort of did that with like Lost Legacy, and it turned obviously into that expand-alone game. But the original intention was to do that, and then like Left Behind before that with The Last of Us, that was a massive success. Both of them, I believe, very successful for what they were. So yeah, I definitely think so. Was there anything that you wanted to plug?
No.
The classic
like
YouTuber plug. Didn't want to. You got an OnlyFans or a private Snapchat or something like that. You want to plug? No.
You should think about it though. Obviously, in this isolation time, make some extra.
Easy money if you can get the crowd, man. Couple of cheeky like these ones. Anyway, Josh's Twitter.
People can follow my Twitter.
There.
I'll unblock it by the time this is out because at the moment people are hating on one of my tweets. So
you're so popular.
Thousands of people hating on me that I had to protect it because there's bullying happening now. People don't attack people on the internet. Anyway, follow me there and I'll have it unblocked by the time this is out.
Yeah, cool, awesome. And so obviously, like, you're probably watching this on my channel unless someone stole it and put it somewhere else. But my stuff is down here. I'm planning on doing some Twitch stuff soon, just as like a very casual kind of thing. But I'd like to do some like more casual presentations that aren't the normal edited videos that you find on here. Something sort of halfway between what's on my normal channel and this kind of just talking head stuff. So follow me over there. That'd be awesome. I'd appreciate that. Otherwise, my Twitter and my YouTube is there. Yeah, thanks for watching, I guess.
Let's do Borderlands 3 on your Twitch, my friend. Let's
Yeah, you want to
we
play some
can yell
Borderlands
at
3
each
on
other.
Twitch? Yeah, okay. I mean, we could.
We'll yell at each other publicly this time.
The only problem is that you're going to have to buy it on PC. So.
Oh no, then let's not do that.
Instantly shut down.
Instantly let's go to PlayStation or get out of my
life. You have to make things so difficult. Anyway, thanks a bunch for coming on and talking about stuff, Josh. I guess we'll leave it there. We'll let these beautiful people not deal with their like personal struggles.
If you made it this far, message Michael. He'll buy you a coffee. If you've watched the whole thing, he'll give you a little quiz. And if you can nail it, he's going to buy you a coffee.
I'll give them a little quiz, and then I'll give you them a little quiz, and then exactly this video length, I'll get a reply. Okay, thanks a bunch, guys. I'll see you next time.